So hi, one of the Good Noise podcasts. I'm Shane.
I'm Glory.
And we're here with...
And this is Joseph from Her Head's on Fire.
And we're asking some questions today about their new album, College Rock and Clove Cigarettes. So congrats on that, by the way. How do you feel about the response to the announcement so far?
It's been great. Yeah. Better than I could have hoped, actually, because it's sort of an unknown band, and all of our previous bands were somewhat known, but it's been a while. So it's nice to have something come out and have people enjoy it for what it is without it necessarily standing on the shoulders of the previous work.
For sure, yeah. It's like I saw the bands that like you guys were all previously in, and like it's not like a direct copy of any of those. So you guys are like definitely trying to like pull yourselves away from like previous work.
Absolutely,
which I respect. Yeah.
Sure, that's awesome.
There's just a different. I mean, once you get a different dynamic and 4 different people in the room, and it's a collaborative effort. There's some elements, of course, but I think a lot of the times I'm a little bit hesitant to put those on, to let people know it's X members of this. I only do it because I think it's a designation of hopefully some sense of quality. That we have made records before, we have toured before, that maybe we kind of know our way around a studio. But I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
No, yeah, you're all good. I mean, you're the guest on the podcast, so feel free to cut me off all you want. It's you're here to talk.
Yeah,
so cool. Yeah. So is there any meaning behind the album title or cover art?
This is a question I'm always hesitant about too. Yes, College Rock and Clove Cigarettes, in a nutshell, that's an easy one. Yes, I was trying to, it's a tip of the hat to the late 80s, early 90s alternative music scene that I grew up in. And, I listened to, before it was alternative rock, it was, college rock or postmodern rock. And it was stuff that you could only hear on college radio stations for the most part. Bands like REM, or The Cure, or Depeche Mode, or Pixies. So on one level, it's a tip of the hat to that. And then the Clove Cigarettes was just the milieu of the time. It's just like, all the girls I wanted to kiss smoked Clove cigarettes. And it made their lips taste like sugar. So I'm told. I don't know, because I never got to kiss them.
Oh, man.
But anyhow, that's kind of what it's a tip of the hat to.
Okay. All
That's
right.
so cool.
And then is there any meaning behind the cover art?
No, I think the cover, Jeff Caudale, who did the artwork, is a good friend. And he's from a similar time frame. And I think that he got it as far as like the sound of the record, the feel of the record, the what we were going for. And so I'm at a point now where I choose to work with people because I have so much trust and faith in their expertise. So I do not design cover art for things. I love Jeff's work. Therefore, other than a little tweak here or there, I'm working with him because I know he's going to do something that, I'm going to be very appreciative of, and it's going to hit the nail on the head. And I think, I told him, I said, look, you have a lot of time, like 3-4 months. I think it was 2 days later. He goes, what do you think of this? I had some time over the weekend, whipped it out. I was like, perfect.
Oh my God.
That's awesome.
Easy. It's been somewhat effortless. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
That's amazing.
Right. So can you tell us a little bit about your writing process for this album?
So I've been in a lot of different bands over the course of my life, and they all have different aspects to the way the writing is done. This particular one, Jeff Dean is the guitar player. He's a very, very prolific writer, and he just sends me the songs, pretty much done, but with no vocals or lyrics or melody. And so I have this sort of blank canvas upon which to put my melody, which is so different than in previous bands where I've been, I play guitar as well. We're like writing chord structures or coming up with rhythms and beats. I'm just sort of handed this thing and then have to interpret it. So I'm kind of taking what he's doing and I'm doing somewhat creative art and also interpretive art, as opposed to being the genesis of the idea. And that's how it's been for the first, 12 songs, and it seems to work. So we'll continue doing it like that.
Do you enjoy like taking that role instead of like being the kind of the main guy?
I love it. Yeah, I think I had a theater background in college. I studied theater, and I always liked the idea of like, sometimes you're the leading man, sometimes you're you're a character off in the distance. Sometimes you're the director or the lighting guy, or you're doing costumes, and each aspect is so different. And so I've really enjoyed, over a lot of the projects that I've done over my life, is wearing different hats and seeing what's the best thing that works together, and I'm always a big fan of people like Miles Davis, that are able to get some of the magic of what they do is that they're able to they know the right voices to appear in a room to make something happen. So when he's doing Kind of Blue, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to need Jimmy Garrison. I'm going to need Coltrane. I'm going to need these people. And I think that once I get them in the room, they're going to make this idea I have based on his sense of who they are musically.
Yeah.
And that, to me, even though it's a rock band, right? It's not nearly as complex as something like improvisational jazz, but I love the idea of bringing in different elements and allowing that person, rather than bringing in a bass player and trying to shape them into what you want them to be, finding the bass player that you think is going to work best for the music. That's something that I really relish.
That's very cool. This is, for lack of a better word.
Good.
Yeah.
I like things that are cool.
Yeah. So what song off the album took the longest to write, and which one is your personal favorite?
From my point of view, they all take about 10 minutes to write. Because I'm handed the chords and I just kind of listen to it and listen to it and listen to it. And then once I get this one melodic idea, that's the through line, it all falls into place usually. I'm kind of at a point where if I think I have to struggle or push it too much, then now is not the time to write that song. Yeah. I really appreciate songs that or artwork that has a sort of a feel to it that is off the top of the head and is somewhat effortless. So my area, I refine it over and over and over again, but the genesis of writing it takes about 10 minutes. My favorite song depends on the day. Right now it's Rising Tide, which is like the latest single, because I just, there's something about, I like the falsetto in the middle of it that I do. And there's something about the way that it's driving and somewhat heavy, yet really kind of moody, that I dig. So right now that's the one that's making me the happiest. That could change in a week.
Yeah.
See.
Yeah.
So like, since your writing is like so hands off and it's like very easy and kind of almost effortless for you, like what song took the longest like within the studio to like come together? Was there one that was like hard in the studio, or was it super effortless for that too?
They all recorded it in a day.
And oh my God.
And then he came out and found me and we recorded all the vocals in one day. So I can't remember anything that took very long.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Right.
Because also that's sort of the animal of this kind of music, right? Like it should sound a little breezy. It should sound a little by the seat of its pants. And there's definitely moments like vocally where I'm like, ooh, that's a little pitchy, or ooh, I could have hit that a little like this. But at the end of the day, the kind of band we are doesn't necessitate that. Like we're not Radiohead. Like if you're going to be Radiohead, who I adore and love, like, or Warpaint, who are great, like you need to spend a lot of time meticulously sculpting like how the hi-hat sounds and in what corner of the room you want it to be, and all these, they're basically making these huge size wall murals. We're making postcards, and it's just like bam.
Yeah.
And that's sort of so it doesn't necessitate us to labor over it. What's more important is that does it have the immediacy of the performance?
That makes sense.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So how'd the track list for the album come about? Did you guys write the opener be the opener, closer be the closer, just shuffle around, see what fits? What was that process like? When
we wrote the opener, we knew it was going to be the opener.
Okay.
And then when we wrote the closer, we were like, that's going to be the closer too. And then everything else was done after it was recorded, and we had a sense of what it's like to listen to it without playing it. What it's like to just sit back and sort of digest the song as removed as you can be as a player, and be like, what does it sound like now? Did it accomplish what we wanted it to? And so Jeff really came up with the framework, and I moved a couple things around, then I removed one song But you know, we're on the same page for a lot of things, so it just sort of came together pretty quickly.
That's good.
Usually when we ask that question, bands are like, oh, he just wrote the songs and threw it together. So I appreciate that, like, you were like, we wrote the opener and we wrote the closer, and we knew that those were going to be the opener and closer, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it depends on the project. I mean, I've written albums where, like, you know, we'll be 5 songs in and I'm like, okay, what does this album need for the 6th song?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, that's like how we're going to change feel. It's going to, like, what are we going to do? Like, we've been doing a lot of this, like, sort of mid-tempo shuffle. I want something that's really upbeat. And sometimes I do that, but that wasn't necessary for this.
Fair enough.
Okay, that's fair. So where was your headspace at while you were creating this album?
I think, well, I was trying to create this at not the same time. Well, I guess so. Similar time that I was doing another band called Judas Knife, which is a little bit more, it's art, man. It's a little bit more heavy like that. So like I was putting my very serious goth side into that.
Mm-hmm.
This has always been, the genesis of the band was always about being fun. And I think that fun, both on record and in the live setting, is somewhat contagious. You know, I mean, you guys have been to shows where you see a band and the chemistry of the people are just having a good time.
Yeah.
And that was the bottom line, even though if my lyrics aren't necessarily always like, you know, party, rock and roll, they can tend to take on more serious subject matter. I thought it was important to have a feel of being lighthearted, breezy, and enjoyable. You know, I mean, like to me, like the highest compliment anyone could pay me with this record is that you listen to it in a car with the windows down with friends. Like that is what it's meant for.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that, so if someone told me that that's what they did, I'd be like, that's perfect, nail on the head. You know.
Wow.
Didn't do that, but now I have to because you told us.
Now you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please do.
All right.
It's the true experience for it. You know, there's certain records you need to listen to, like in a rainstorm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's certain records that are winter records, certain records that are like, you know, going to the beach. This is like driving in the car, windows down with friends. I hope.
And I love that, like, you gave us that because that was going to be my next question, was how should people listen to it for the first time? But like most of the time artists are like, you know, just listen to it. I'm glad like you have an idea of how you want people to experience the record. Yeah, every time they listen to it, but especially the first time, you know.
That's that would be, yeah, God, if I could make that happen. You'd have to be like Wu-Tang, where you just put out like, you know, like 5 records, but they cost $1 million. But with the record comes a car, windows rolled down, and friends if you don't have them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that.
And how did you personally listen to the album for the first time? Did you do that in the car with friends, or did you just kind of take it?
Well, no, I do it. I don't remember the first time. That's a good question. No, actually, I think I listened to it at work. I work at a wine shop. I own a wine shop in Brooklyn, and I think I listened to it on the speakers there because that's sort of a space where I tend to listen to a lot of records, so it was very comfortable for me. So I think if it sounded good there, then I would listen to it on headphones or you know, on a car stereo or something like that, so that I could get a sense of how it sounded on these different things, computer speakers. You know, just to know that how are people going to be digesting this, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense. So this question should be super, super quick. Off the top of your head, I want you to describe this album for new listeners in 3 words, no more, no less.
See, you messed me up by saying it should be easy.
I said it should be quick. I didn't say it was
I mean,
easy.
I really want to say Crazy Sexy Cool because that's the TLC album from the 80s, but 90s rather, but yeah, I'm just gonna say Crazy Sexy Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Right.
I love that. I love that. So is there a certain feeling or emotion you want this album to invoke in your listeners?
Happiness, right? Like joy, you know, and in whatever form that takes. You know, it's music at its best. Makes us feel less alone in the world, and it makes us feel that maybe somebody else sees the world the way I see it, or is experiencing things in a way that rings true to the human condition. And so, without getting too heady, that experience is manifested in joy. If you listen to something and there's, you know, a warmth in your heart, then that should hopefully make the world less bleak, even if it's only momentary. So that would be the feeling.
Hell yeah.
That was perfect.
So what is your favorite memory that you made while creating this album?
I had a really good time with Jeff Dean recording the record in Brooklyn, because it was just the two of us. He flew out from Chicago, and he's a guitar player, and it's a place in New York City, and we just, it was just the two of us, and we just spent the day, with copious amounts of water, going through and recording the vocals and trying to get them all down. And he's a really lighthearted guy, so it was fun, and we've got a good working relationship, so he can be like, try it again. I didn't believe that one. I'm like, okay. And I didn't get angry or upset. I was just like, all right, let's do it again. We'll get it. And that's very fun. I mean, are either of you musicians?
No, not a musical bone either of my bodies.
No.
Well, we just, so, playing music is obviously really fun and great, but there's something about, singing, that is particularly intimate, and being able to sing into a microphone, and to get it right it's nice to be able to get a guitar part right, but to sing something and hear that back and be happy with it is quite satisfying. So yeah.
Hell yeah.
Sure. I love that. So for this question, I want you to picture you're on tour. You're at a gas station for a rest stop. You're going in. What is your snack of choice?
Almonds.
Almonds?
Okay.
Salted,
Yeah.
unsalted, Cajun?
Roasted,
what are we doing?
roasted salted almonds, because it's the least likely thing in that place to give me cancer.
That's a good point. That in the water.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
So yeah, and the water is questionable, right? So almonds.
All right.
Almonds?
Mhm.
Love that. I love
right.
that.
So on the topic of food, if the band was a dish, what dish would the band be and why? We stumped you.
No, we'd probably be brined or roast. No, maybe roasted bronzino with fingerling potatoes, with a little bit of asparagus or broccoli rabe on the side, to be had with a glass of rosso di montalcino on a beach in the Mediterranean.
I love how specific that was. You made me very hungry.
Yeah.
I'm a
Oh my
vegan and
God.
you made me hungry.
Victory.
Oh my God, that is amazing. Thank you for being uber specific, as Shane said.
Hey,
That's crazy.
that's the devil's in the details.
For sure. So for these last couple questions, we're actually going to shift away from music, if that's okay with you.
Of course.
Great. So we're actually going to go straight to death row.
Boom.
So if you're on death row, what would your last meal be with a drink?
I was hoping they were talking Death Row Records.
I'm sorry.
It's fine. What would my last meal would probably be bronzino and broccoli rabe and fingerling potatoes and a glass of roasted. Well, no, it would be Brunello de Montalcino, which is the one that's aged 3 years in oak. So that would probably be my final meal.
Okay.
We had
Perfect.
someone try to spin it like they were being signed to Death Row Records today, and
it was their first
it
meal.
failed. Yeah.
Well, you can't can't fault them for trying.
Yeah. So if you could live in one fictional world for a week, where would you live?
One fictional world.
Yes.
That's what. See, that's interesting, because there's so many fictional worlds that are amazing, but not really desirous to live in, like Blade Runner.
Yeah.
I'd probably live in the fictional world of Jim Woodring's Frank, which is a comic book, which you should Google. Jim Woodring.
Okay.
And Frank, who he looks a little bit like it's like a weird, more LSD manifestation in Mickey Mouse.
Okay.
So that's
I'm
where I'd
gonna
live.
have to Google it. Never heard of
Yeah.
it.
Please do. It's worth
Yeah.
your time.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. Okay, but that's a pleasant place. That's somewhere you would want to go.
Oh, I don't know. Depends on the frame of the comic book. It can be very nice, and then it can be very dark.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right, so you'll take your chance.
Yeah, hey, it's life, right?
Yeah,
that's
go
what
for
it's
it.
about. Experience.
Love that.
Mhm.
So I have the honor of asking the last question. Every single
Okay.
person we've spoken to has actually said it is the most important question.
Okay.
What is your favorite color?
Black. Because it is
Perfect.
all colors, and this is a good question I have with my son all the time, because his favorite is red.
Oh,
But yeah, black.
All right.
perfect.
It's
I love
easy, you never have to match things to it. Everything matches to it.
Yeah.
True.
Mhm.
So as Gloria said, that's all the questions we have today. Is there anything that you would like to plug?
No.
Okay.
Just
Not
the bands.
album,
I like the
or-
band. The whole
Yeah.
point we're here, what we've been talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
All
The
right.
record. It's a fun record. I like music.
Perfect.
All right.
So do we.
Great.
Well, thank you for now. This has been Joseph from Her Head's on Fire, and we have been the Good Noise Podcast.